This is an RNZ podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Your Money with me, Mary Holm. Thanks for taking just a few minutes to listen in while Jessie Mulligan and I talk through some useful ideas about how to make your money work better for you. Just remember though, this is guidance. Final decisions are up to you. Over to Jessie.
Mary Holm is here to talk money. Hi, Mary.
Hello, Jessie. Can
How are
I
you
be
getting on,
really
friend?
cheeky? I've just
No,
had
please
this
go ahead.
great idea. I'm sitting here with my cat Jack on my knee and thinking that the next time we talk, hopefully I'll be in the studio with you. But Jack is purring really loudly, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he could purr on Radio New Zealand? So can I just put the
Please do.
mouthpiece
Please
to
do.
just a sec? Could you hear that?
Not very well. Do you want to have another go?
One more try. I think he's purring a bit more softly because he doesn't know what's going on.
We can hear something going on. It's not perhaps the full sort of hi-fi experience you were anticipating.
Oh, never mind.
Worth a go, though.
Yeah,
I'm always up for it.
Yeah, we've got to have a bit of variety, don't we? Yeah.
What's on your mind this week?
Well, ethical investing, which we haven't talked about for a long time, it can be a little bit of a dry subject in some ways, but there's just
Never
been...
with you, Mary.
Sorry?
Never
with me.
dry with you.
You don't usually have cat purrs with it, no. But yeah, I was just thinking, actually, all the names you can call ethical investing, and the FMA actually has got a bit of a list on its website: responsible investing, green finance, sustainable investing, social investing, impact investing, ESG, which stands for environmental, social and governance, are all names that people... But, years ago I first wrote about ethical investing, and it was a pretty minor thing for decades.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of...
A real greeny thing, eh?
Yes, it was. It reminds me a bit of index funds, which I've also written about for decades. And both of them were kind of just lying there in the background for so long, and now they've both become quite big things in the last 5 or 10 years, and especially in the last couple of years, I think. But ethical investing, just very broadly, there are kind of 3 ways that fund managers do it. One is to exclude the really naughty companies. Like, I was reading something the other day that said no KiwiSaver funds will invest in a company a nuclear weapons company, and that's a kind of easy way for fund managers just to exclude perhaps tobacco companies, porno companies, that kind of thing. And then there's the inclusive one where there are funds that specialise in, quote, good companies. They might be environmentally good or they might be good in other ways. And then the third one's an interesting one where the fund managers engage a company. And sometimes they invest in an unethical sort of company with the hopes of going along to their shareholder meetings and saying, hey, look, we're a big investor in you. How about cleaning up your act one way or another? So that, of course, involves a lot more work on the part of the fund manager, but that's happening out there too. So there's a lot more...
Arguably, you can make more of a difference going to investing in an automobile company and getting them to review their practices.
Yeah.
Or as much as you can to the company that's already doing things sustainably.
That's right, yeah, make it have more of an impact. I think there are some funds in America that invest in a sort of best company in each industry,
Oh, yeah.
So they're trying to encourage even the industries like cars or something that are not inherently terrible industries, but, we'd like them to put out more electric cars or whatever. So that kind of thing's going on as well. So there's all kinds of interesting stuff going on now. And there's an organisation called, horrible long name, the Responsible Investment Association of Australasia, which, and one of the problems with it, I think, is that because it's got Australasia tacked on the end there, New Zealanders don't even kind of notice it, because Australasia just looks like Australia at a glance, but they do cover New Zealand as well. And they've got the annual 2021 New Zealand report just come out where they looked at 47 different financial institutions and what they're up to. And there's some quite cheering news coming out of all that. If this is something that you care about, they say the majority of mainstream investment market claims to be responsibly invested, but the funds that are really making a real effort at this, they've seen an explosion in assets under management, they say, of the fund managers that are really caring about it. The explosion, I think that's slight hyperbole, because they've increased funds under management doing this. In other words, the amount of money doing this by 28% from 2019 to 2020, which is a big jump. Don't know whether it's an explosion, but anyway, a big jump in the number of companies that are really doing this stuff well. And meanwhile, on Mindful Money, which is the New Zealand website, the one that's got all the good information about ethical investing, one of their findings recently in a survey was that 93% of New Zealanders who are not already investing sort of ethically would like to switch in the next year. It's one of those suspect things in a survey, isn't it? Because if people say, well, are you in and you say no, and they say, well, would you like to switch in the next year? That's pretty easy to say yes to. But at the same time, 93%, so most New Zealanders are at least saying that they're interested in making some kind of move like that, which is interesting. And meanwhile, we've got the KiwiSaver default funds, the new funds, which I'll talk about more in late November, because that change takes effect at the beginning of December. But the new default funds, so the funds that people get put in KiwiSaver if they don't choose a provider, they have to get rid of fossil fuels from their investment portfolios. A lot of them will have got rid of them anyway. So that's another thing that's going on. And Mindful Money has reported that KiwiSaver holdings in fossil fuel producing companies has dropped from 2.5% of all the investments to 1.8%, which is it's quite a big percentage jump from 2.5% to 1.8%, and that was just over 6 months. So stuff's really happening out there, I reckon. And the report on New Zealand in 2021 points out New Zealand has a sustainable finance forum which has put out a roadmap to getting finances greener and more ethical. And fairly recently, New Zealand has launched a Centre for Sustainable Finance. So there's all of this, there's a lot of stuff going on out there, step by step. And when we stop to look at New Zealand versus Australia, nearly half of New Zealand's investment managers, so that includes KiwiSaver providers, are practicing responsible investment. And in Australia, it's only a quarter. So that's quite neat, isn't it?
It's always a good motivator, eh?
It is. Isn't it pathetic? The way when I lived in Australia, they never bothered to compare with New Zealand. They always compare with America. So I think countries compare with their bigger brother, But
Yeah. But if it works for us, right? Like, I think we've just. I haven't got the actual figures in front of me, but we're looking pretty good on the vaccination front, or catching them, if not overtaking them.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. I mean, it's partly because they are the most similar culture to ours, really, although there's some huge differences. But I think, that's and they're close by, and they talk a little bit like we do. So we do compare.
And they're really annoying.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
That's just my editorial addition, yeah. Go on.
Yes, yeah. No, you're quite right. On the issues, I thought this was quite interesting. Which sort of ethical issues matter most to people, and climate change is the one that both the general public and the investment managers are really looking at. But going beyond climate change, the customers, the ordinary people, care about human rights abuses and animal cruelty are their sort of next biggest issues. whereas the fund managers are looking at excluding tobacco and weapons and firearms. And I suspect that's partly because it's easier for investment managers to just cut out tobacco companies and firearms companies, etc., whereas having to do a bit of research on what human rights abuses companies might be involved in, that takes a bit more research, takes a bit longer. I mean, it might be human rights abuses of their employees, and that includes, of course, perhaps buying products from a country where there's human rights abuses going on in the factories that are making all those cheap goods that we buy. Whenever you sort of see in the supermarket, you can buy 3 pairs of knickers for $8, and you sort of worry, don't you? How
that's possible.
Yes, how it could have got into the New Zealand supermarkets for that price. And there was a guy, wasn't there, a while back that went all the way to China to the factory there to have a look at how that could be done.
I remember that.
So that takes a lot more research sometimes, doesn't it? And excuse me, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat today.
Got a bit of a purr on.
Yeah, very good, Jesse, very good. Yeah.
You have a drink of water if you like, and I'll let people know that Australia has 73.4% with 1 dose of the vaccine, New Zealand 75.3%, so we are up. They currently have more fully vaccinated people, 48.5% to 40% for people keeping tabs.
So now
you only got 3 more minutes to get through.
Okay, yeah. No, there's a couple more quick points to make. That greenwash, which is the quite clever expression used for companies saying they're doing, or fund managers saying they're doing things really well, whereas in fact they're just saying it and there's not a lot behind that. And there's increased scrutiny of that now. The Financial Markets Authority on its website says that it's actually illegal for these companies to mislead or confuse investors. So it's not even just misleading, it's just you can just confuse people by calling a fund green or something like that, whereas it's not all that green really. So if anyone sort of suspects, on the FMA website, if you look for ethical investing there's information on what the FMA is doing about that, but basically they're trying to stop people from being hoodwinked about it.
Well, that's a good word, Mary.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Hoodwinked.
Yeah. That's probably an old-fashioned word. I don't know.
I'll look it up while you make your final remarks on this.
Yes, it must. Yes, perhaps my cat was winking. So a couple of main points to make here really are: if you're looking to go into ethical investing, the best sources of information, the best source is the Mindful Money website, which is the New Zealand website, and there you can specify which particular issues matter most to you, or you can just say they all matter the same to me and come up with funds that might be suitable for you to invest in. This is KiwiSaver funds and non-KiwiSaver. A word of warning, on that website I think you can specify the risk level you want, but do be careful because a lot of ethical funds invest in shares only, and so they are quite high risk, high return sort of funds. So we don't want people who actually want lower risk, lower return funds saying, this is a great fund, this is going to make me feel ethically good, and take on too much risk. So you've still got to keep an eye on the risk. So there is also the Responsible Returns website is another one, and that's run by this Responsible Investment Association of Australia of Australasia, and they have New Zealand investments on as well as Australian. So if you want a second place to check, you could look at the Responsible Returns website. So those are the two main sources of information about all of this.
Good stuff, Mary. Thanks for the refresher and for taking a look at what's available out there now. I'm sure that will be very useful for people, particularly if those stats are true, that there are more and more people trying to do this. And I guess the moral is if you're going to do it right.
Yes, a really good point, yes. Get yourself into a fund that really matters to you and the right risk level.
Okay, thanks very much. It's Mary Holm with information on ethical investing.